The night was quiet, almost eerily so. In a small Pennsylvania town back in 1992, streetlights flickered along empty roads. The occasional car hummed past, and most families were tucked safely inside their homes, unaware that something sinister had taken place that would haunt the community for decades. It started as a missing person report, seemingly routine, but soon it became clear that this was no ordinary case. What unfolded over the next few hours, and then over the coming months, would leave investigators frustrated, families desperate for answers, and neighbors whispering about a mystery that refused to be solved. Little did anyone know, the truth was buried deep, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to resurface. From the very beginning, the investigation was plagued with challenges. In 1992, forensic technology was primitive compared to today's standards. DNA testing was in its infancy. Databases were limited, and even the simplest leads often went cold before they could be fully explored. Officers worked tirelessly, combing through witness statements, retracing the missing person's last known movements, and interviewing anyone who might have had a clue, but the case stubbornly refused to yield its secrets. As weeks turned into months and months into years, the investigation slowed, but it never truly stopped. For the victim's family, every passing year was filled with unanswered questions and lingering hope that one day someone would uncover the truth. Despite the passage of time, the case remained alive in the minds of detectives and cold case investigators who refused to give up. Every old tip was revisited, every scrap of evidence meticulously re-examined, and as technology advanced, new opportunities to solve the mystery emerged. The town moved on, yet the memory of that night lingered, a ghost of what could have been prevented, a question that demanded an answer. And then, decades later, a breakthrough came. A combination of persistence, cutting-edge forensic analysis, and sheer determination led investigators down a path that would finally reveal the shocking truth and the identity of the person responsible, a revelation that would shake the entire community to its core. What happened next would make history in the town, proving that even after decades, no crime is ever truly forgotten. Tonight will take you step by step through the twists and turns of this Pennsylvania cold case from 1992, how it began, why it remained unsolved for so long, and how one arrest finally brought closure to a story that had left the town in suspense for nearly 30 years. The night of October 15th, 1992, began like any other in the sleepy Pennsylvania town. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of falling leaves, and streetlights cast long shadows on empty streets. Most residents were at home, finishing dinner, watching television, or preparing for bed, unaware that their lives would soon be touched by a mystery that would remain unsolved for decades. It started as a seemingly ordinary missing person report. The call came in just after midnight. Someone had vanished without a trace. The local police rushed to the scene, piecing together fragments of information from frantic family members, neighbors who had glimpsed something unusual, and the few witnesses who could recall details about the evening. From the very start, the case presented immense challenges. There were no obvious suspects, no forced entry, and no immediate physical evidence linking anyone to the disappearance. In 1992, forensic technology was limited. DNA testing existed, but it was not nearly as accessible or advanced as it is today. Fingerprints could be lifted, but databases were far smaller, and cross-referencing took weeks, if not months. Investigators had to rely heavily on witness statements, timelines, and intuition tools that were often imperfect and incomplete. Every lead seemed to hit a wall, leaving detectives frustrated and the family desperate for answers. Yet even in the darkness of uncertainty, there remained a flicker of hope, a belief that the truth could still be uncovered. As the days turned into weeks, the town began to feel the weight of the unresolved disappearance. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by whispered conversations at grocery stores, church gatherings, and schools. People began to question what they knew about their neighbors, and suspicion crept into daily life. Families feared for their own safety, wondering if the perpetrator could strike again. Local newspapers ran brief updates, each one leaving more questions than answers. The police held press conferences, appealing for information, but the case stubbornly refused to yield any solid leads. For the family of the victim, every day was a torturous cycle of hope and despair. They clung to every small clue, revisited the scene, and asked endless questions, desperate for even the tiniest breakthrough. But as months passed and the trail grew colder, the sense of helplessness became almost unbearable. Detectives faced immense pressure from the community, but also limited resources. The case became emblematic of a growing national awareness. Cold cases were not just unsolved crimes. They were wounds that festered in the hearts of families, communities, and those sworn to uphold justice. The investigation into the 1992 disappearance was marked by frustration and dead ends. Officers followed every tip, no matter how minor, but the threads often led to nothing. Witnesses' memories were inconsistent, and over time, the fear of speaking out caused some to go silent. The police reviewed security records, phone logs, and travel patterns, yet nothing seemed to connect. Every lead was like a ghost there and then gone. For years, the case sat in files, classified as unsolved, while detectives quietly revisited old evidence whenever new technology emerged. Despite the obstacles, a few determined investigators refused to let the case fade into obscurity. They understood that solving it might require patience, measured not in months, but in decades. They meticulously preserved every piece of evidence, cataloged witness statements, and maintained detailed timelines. What seemed like a hopeless situation was, in reality, laying the groundwork for the breakthrough that would eventually come. They knew that science would advance, that DNA testing would become more precise, and that someday, even the smallest clue might unlock the mystery. Years passed, and the 1992 cold case became a symbol of unresolved justice. But then, a combination of modern forensic technology and relentless detective work breathed new life into the investigation. Old evidence was re-examined using advanced DNA analysis. Digital databases allowed cross-referencing across states, and tips previously dismissed gained new significance under the scrutiny of modern science. Detectives found connections that were invisible decades earlier, patterns in behavior, inconsistencies in past alibis, and traces of evidence that had been overlooked. The breakthrough was not sudden. It was the result of meticulous, painstaking work. Detectives reconstructed timelines, cross-checked witness accounts, and applied modern forensic tools to evidence once thought inconclusive. Slowly, a clearer picture emerged. The suspect, someone who had managed to live a seemingly ordinary life within the community, had carefully hidden their tracks. Yet the truth could not be buried forever. With every re-examination, every digital cross-check, the investigators inched closer to the shocking revelation that would ultimately bring the case to a close. After decades of unanswered questions, the breakthrough led detectives to one person, someone who had long blended seamlessly into the community, living an ordinary life while hiding an extraordinary secret. The investigation that spanned years now entered a critical, tense stage. Surveillance was conducted quietly. Officers reviewed daily routines, and each movement of the suspect was monitored with precision. Every piece of evidence collected in 1992 and every new lead uncovered decades later now converged, pointing to the same individual. The arrest was executed early one morning, in near silence, to avoid chaos and ensure safety. Neighbors awoke to the presence of unmarked vehicles and officers quietly entering the residence. Cameras captured the moment the suspect was taken into custody, hands cuffed, expression a mixture of defiance and disbelief, the reality of their long-hidden crime finally catching up. For many in the town, the news of the arrest spread like wildfire. Shock, disbelief, and a sense of grim satisfaction rippled through the community. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues struggled to reconcile the ordinary persona they had known with the crimes that had remained hidden for decades. For the victim's family, the arrest brought a mixture of emotions that words could scarcely describe. Relief battled with the lingering pain of years lost, and validation mingled with sorrow over the life that could never be restored. After decades of waiting, the nightmare had finally been addressed, and for the first time, they could begin to imagine a sense of closure. The arrest sent shockwaves through the small Pennsylvania town. It was one thing to read about cold cases solved in distant cities, but to have a decades-old mystery resolved in their own backyard left residents stunned. Conversations buzzed in grocery stores, churches, and schools. People who had walked past the suspect every day now questioned everything they thought they knew. Social media erupted. News channels reported continuously, and even neighboring towns took note of the extraordinary development. Local authorities held press conferences, carefully recounting the steps that led to the breakthrough. Detectives emphasized the persistence, patience, and meticulous attention to detail that made the resolution possible. Yet, even as official statements were made, the emotional undercurrent ran strong. Families who had felt powerless for decades now felt a renewed faith in law enforcement, while others wrestled with the unsettling reality that someone who appeared ordinary could commit such a heinous act. For the victim's loved ones, the emotional release was profound. Tears flowed, hugs were shared, and years of unanswered questions began to find their shape in a tangible reality. While the arrest could never undo the past, it represented justice finally being served. It was a moment that reinforced the value of persistence, technology, and unwavering commitment to truth, even when hope seems faint. Following the arrest, the legal process unfolded with intense scrutiny. Courtrooms, once distant from the community's attention, became arenas where decades of mystery and pain were dissected publicly. Prosecutors presented the evidence painstakingly reconstructed over years' DNA matches, reanalyzed forensic data, and witness testimonies revisited with modern techniques. Each detail was a testament to the painstaking effort invested by detectives over decades. The defense attempted to challenge the credibility of evidence, citing the passage of time and potential errors in recollection. Yet the advances in forensic technology and the meticulous documentation from the original investigation left little room for doubt. Every piece of evidence, every re-examined lead, painted a coherent picture that left both jurors and observers stunned at the meticulous orchestration of justice. For the community and the family of the victim, the courtroom proceedings were both exhausting and cathartic. Witnessing the suspect held accountable for decades of unanswered questions provided a tangible sense of resolution. The trial not only underscored the consequences of the crime, but also highlighted the incredible evolution of forensic science and the ways in which tenacity and dedication can ultimately prevail, even after decades of waiting. The Pennsylvania 1992 cold case is more than a story of crime and investigation. It is a testament to patience, persistence, and the enduring pursuit of justice. Decades can pass, witnesses can forget, and memories can fade. Yet the dedication of those committed to solving cold cases proves that time alone cannot bury the truth. The investigators' refusal to give up, combined with technological advancements, ultimately led to justice being served, a reminder that perseverance matters. For law enforcement agencies, the case became an example of how meticulous evidence preservation, periodic review of unsolved cases, and integration of modern forensic tools can make breakthroughs possible. For families, it was a story of hope, showing that the search for truth is never futile, no matter how long it takes. For the community, it served as both a cautionary tale and a validation of the role of persistence and vigilance. The case also raises questions about ordinary appearances and hidden truths. The individual responsible had lived undetected for decades, reinforcing the idea that evil can hide behind ordinary facades. Yet, despite the deception, The case's resolution highlights that no crime is truly hidden forever, and justice, though delayed, is inevitable when effort and technology converge. As the story of the Pennsylvania 1992 cold case comes to a close, it leaves us with lessons that resonate far beyond the town where it unfolded. It is a story of tragedy and heartbreak, but also of resilience, hope, and unwavering determination. Families who waited decades for answers finally saw the truth revealed. Detectives who refused to give up demonstrated the power of patience and modern technology. And the community, shaken by revelations, was reminded that justice, though sometimes delayed, is never denied. In reflecting on this case, one thing is clear: cold cases are never truly cold. They are reminders that truth has a way of resurfacing, that persistence matters, and that the human desire for justice is a force stronger than time itself. The Pennsylvania cold case of 1992 proves that even after decades of silence, secrets can be uncovered, wrongs can be righted, and a community can finally begin to heal. This story serves as a powerful reminder: no matter how long it takes, the pursuit of truth, accountability, and justice will always matter, and those who refuse to give up can change history, one case at a time.